Hello, our topic is difficult Navamsa charts and crimes. The ninth harmonic chart is referred to as the Navamsa chart in Vedic astrology. So it goes by two names. In Vedic astrology, it's called the Navamsa chart. In modern Western astrology, it's often called the ninth harmonic chart. It's the same thing. In Vedic astrology, it's often done in the sidereal zodiac, and in Western astrology, typically in the tropical zodiac. But what I'm going to look at today are aspects in the Navamsa chart, and they are the same regardless of which zodiac you use. So the ninth harmonic chart, I believe, shows how a person bonds with their neighbors and community. If there's a disruption in the person's ability to bond with their neighbors and community, that's not good, and that can be one factor that inclines the person towards a life of crime. And there are two planetary combinations in the Navamsa chart that show a potential to not be able to bond in a normal and healthy way with one's neighbors and communities. And those two planetary aspects are Saturn with Uranus and Saturn with Neptune. So Saturn, in a ninth harmonic aspect to Uranus, or an aspect based on ninth harmonic, what this will amount to is, if there's an aspect between Saturn and Uranus in the ninth harmonic, then the person feels that the community is restrictive and oppressive, and they want to be free of these restrictions. And with Saturn-Neptune aspects in the ninth harmonic chart, the person is very sensitive to hypocrisy and insincerity. They tend to be cynical of community values and the religious ideals that people have in their community. So these two aspects are not necessarily negative. They can be used constructively or destructively to find solutions and make changes. Positively, Saturn-Uranus will make changes in the community to free people up, to be less restricted, to be less tied down by the social mores, the social customs. And Saturn-Neptune will help bring real help and assistance to people and do things of real value and avoid hypocrisy and insincerity. But keep in mind that people don't know they have an astrology chart. They don't articulate and verbalize themselves exactly what's going on. Person with Saturn-Uranus aspects in the ninth harmonic chart feels really uncomfortable with how things work in the community, and they seek alternatives. Person with Saturn-Neptune aspects in the ninth harmonic tends to see whatever hypocrisies there are, whatever insincerities there are, whatever superficialities there are in the community values and ideals, and they tend to be unhappy about those things and look for something that's more sincere, we might say more real, more honest in terms of the shared ideals of the community. And there are other things. For example, Moon-Saturn aspects in the ninth harmonic chart, Saturn-Pluto aspects can also lead to a yearning for a genuine bond. The person wants to really connect in a sincere and honest way, and when that doesn't happen, they feel lonely. So, a lot of birthday parties and celebrations and, just smile and everybody's happy without real, honest, straightforward communication and concern leaves them really empty and inclined to emotional depression. And in cases like this, where people have Moon-Saturn or Saturn-Pluto aspects in the ninth harmonic chart, they tend to cling to the people and to the situations where there is honest communication. Even if that communication is not healthy, if it's not endorsed by the community, at least they had an honest exchange and some sincerity, and people really listening and taking a real interest in each other. Okay, so let's look at some charts of people who are involved in crime. In a video that I just made a few days ago, I showed the chart of 6 leaders in the Mafia and things that they have in their chart. And after I made that video, I had this thought, I want to look at their ninth harmonic charts, because I've noticed this before with people who are involved in crime or just can't connect with their communities, they often have some difficult looking aspects in the ninth harmonic chart suggesting they're not bonding well. So I wanted to look at it in these 6 charts, and sure enough, there it was. 5 out of the 6 mafia bosses have Saturn and Uranus in aspect in the ninth harmonic chart, using the aspect sets with the orbs that I use in harmonic charts, which I explain in another video, Introduction to Interpreting Harmonic Charts. Using that aspect set in those orbs, 5 out of 6 have Saturn and Uranus. And curiously, I didn't expect this, they're all soft aspects. So here are the 6 Mafia bosses. Joe Adonis has Saturn sextile Uranus in his ninth harmonic chart, not his natal chart. Albert Anastasia, also Saturn sextile Uranus. Badalamenti, Saturn trine Uranus. Coppola, Saturn trine Uranus. This is the one that doesn't have a Saturn Uranus aspect in the ninth chart. Magadino, and Rena has a Saturn trine Uranus. So something about the Mafia liking these soft aspects, I'm not liking something about the Mafia having a resonance with Saturn Uranus soft aspects. And then the Saturn Neptune shows up in half of these Mafia bosses, and they're all hard aspects. One of them has the Saturn conjunct Neptune, one has Saturn 1/16 Neptune, that's a hard aspect, another has Saturn opposition Neptune. So they all have some of this flavor, the Saturn Uranus, very common among this particular group of people. So it confirms what I expected. This is not a proof, this is not an absolute crystal clear validation that astrology absolutely works, but it very strongly suggests when you have an idea that you're expecting to see something and then you see it in those charts, you're getting confirmation that you're on the right track. Excuse me. And these are all of the 6 charts that I was looking at, so I'm not cherry picking among them. And also there are usually aspects of Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune to some of the 5 inner planets, so they usually are aspected to Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Let's look at this real quickly. Here's the ninth harmonic of Joe Adonis. This is Saturn conjunct Neptune and Saturn sextile Uranus. Both Saturn and Neptune that are conjunct are sextile Uranus. And then you see Saturn making lots of aspects, aspecting the Sun, Venus, Mercury, etc. So that's the typical thing you see. Here's the next one, Albert Anastasia. And let's see, where's his Saturn? Over here. And Saturn 1/16 Neptune and part of a Venus-Saturn-Neptune pattern, and Saturn sextile Uranus. And we look at the next one, which is Gaetano Badalamenti, and we see here that Saturn is over here, trine Uranus, 22 Pisces to 18 Scorpio, Saturn trine Uranus, and Saturn opposition Neptune, in very extremely strong, 4-minute orb, almost an exact Saturn-Neptune opposition. So, and then Saturn's also conjunct Mars, and Jupiter isn't necessarily good in these things. If you have the Saturn Uranus, and in his case also the Saturn-Neptune, you have this tendency to feel uncomfortable with the way the community is. Now, feeling uncomfortable with the way the community is doesn't necessarily make you a criminal, but if you're uncomfortable with the community, it's going to incline you a little bit to step outside the mainstream and to try to do something a little bit differently. And if you're brought up in a culture, as these people were, that encourage an alternative lifestyle that's outside the mainstream, where you can band together and work outside the system, then these are the kind of people that are susceptible to this. And in the other video that I made on Mafia Leaders and astrology, I showed other things that incline people to join the Mafia and become active members in it. All of this because people are not channeling the energy, they're not directing the energy in the best possible way. Of course, these things don't have to turn bad, as they did for these people. Okay, here's Frank Coppola. Saturn trine Uranus. There it is again. Very strong trine. He does not have the Saturn-Neptune aspect. But Saturn's also square Moon. So that, that's another indicator of feeling outside the system, not feeling connected. You don't necessarily have to become alienated, but it opens the door for that to happen. So some care has to be taken if you have children with these aspects, to help them build habits to develop constructive ways to make reforms in the community for Saturn, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, to be involved in honest, sincere values, and not get so wound up and fixated on the hypocrisies and superficialities that you just become cynical of everything. And that's the negative tendency of Saturn, Neptune. Doesn't have to go that way, but that's what's happening with many of these people who turn to a life of crime. Now, here we have Steve Magadino, and he has the Saturn-Neptune aspect, 3/8 aspect, and Neptune is conjunct Pluto very tightly, so Saturn's aspecting both Neptune and Pluto, so that Pluto in there strengthens the power of it. He does not have the Saturn-Neptune. And the last of the 6 Mafia bosses is Salvatore Reina, I'm not sure how you say his name, and he's got the Saturn trine Uranus very tight. Saturn's also conjunct Mercury. He does not have the Saturn-Neptune aspect. Okay, so you see these things showing up with these Mafia leaders. Now, after I looked at this, I happened to go on to Facebook and saw somebody post the chart of a fellow by the name of Ian Brady, who's a whole nother level, a different kind of criminal from the Mafia leaders, in that his crimes seem to have no other benefit. It's not like he's making money or part of this club and this group with all of their social support system. He just becomes evil. I mean, just purely sadistic. Develops a relationship with a lady, Myra Hindley, and they go about killing people and torturing them. So really sick stuff. And you wonder, how do people get like this? Obviously, it takes a lot of things. There may be, genetic things involved. Certainly there's going to be environmental things. We're expecting significant trauma in childhood, etc. But is there something astrological that contributes to it as well? When we look at the 9th harmonic, so now I was curious. I saw this, fellow astrologer posted this note. What do you think makes this guy a criminal, Ian Bradley? So by coincidence, I was just doing this research on crime and astrology. I pull up Ian Brady's 9th harmonic chart. This is a 9th harmonic chart. And there it is, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, and Sun, all within 10 degrees. If you've watched the video on how to interpret harmonic charts, we allow a 16-degree orb, a 4-planet pattern. The Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto all within 5 degrees. Incredibly strong Saturn-Uranus energy with the Sun and Pluto. And some of these planets are Saturn and Pluto, anywhere opposite Mars as well. And the Moon at almost 26 Gemini here, squaring Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus. Amazing. So there's that Moon, Saturn, the Saturn, Pluto, Moon, Pluto. Wow, he's got this. He doesn't have Saturn, Neptune. Here's Neptune over here. But his Saturn-Uranus energy is off the charts. I mean, it's unbelievably strong. Plus the Moon, Saturn. So he's feeling very easily not connected. So if something happens in his childhood, maybe he's also got a genetic predisposition. I don't know if that could be relevant or not. But I certainly think the astrology is clear that it's a wiring diagram, what I call vibrational astrology, these vibrational astrological patterns. These intricate patterns, intricate compared to the normal astrology where all you do is look at some basic aspects in the natal chart, are showing a vibrational system. And here we're seeing the tendency to not feel comfortable in the community, to feel alienated outside it. And with the wrong stimulus and the wrong experiences and confirmation of this from people not responding very well, it takes a bad turn. The person makes some decisions. They develop an understanding of the world that's very negative, and they turn against it. And that's what happens. So I think this is amazing. I think it's exciting for astrology that with this new step beyond the usual levels of astrology into these vibrational astrological patterns, that we can actually see the potential for various kinds of behavior. We can see the kinds of things that could trigger a person to go into a life of crime. We can see the dynamics involved, and it gives us information on, because we know what's causing it, we have some ideas on how to get the person out of it. To find ways to get their sense of, in this case, real communication, honest communication, sincerity, to break through that alienation. And also, as I pointed out in the video on Mafia Leaders, what I looked at there was the 11th and 13th harmonic, and look at Ian Brady's 11th harmonic chart. Wow. Sun, moon are square. So the sun and moon are extremely important, forming a T-square with 3 inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And the sun is in hard aspect and at the midpoint of Saturn, Neptune. So very restless, very fidgety. It's the ADHD type syndrome he would be diagnosed as today. Can't sit still, has to keep moving. So this restlessness, and with the Sun, Saturn, Neptune, tends to go off in his own fantasy world. We've got some real potential problems because we've got an extremely high instability here in the 11th harmonic. Plus we see what was going on in the 9th harmonic. And then if there's something going on in the 13th harmonic, there's a strong pattern there, can encourage a person to feel that it's okay for them to live outside the law. Although in this case, the extreme 9th and 11th can just make the person feel like they don't belong in society, that they're somehow not part of it. God didn't make them to be part of this normal world, and they can define themselves as criminals. But he does have 13th harmonic, a moon, Jupiter, Uranus. Probably encourages him a little bit to feel like he can step outside the law. But in his case, I think with the Mafia it's a little bit different because they're bosses, they're leaders. So they feel like they're better than the law. I'm not sure if Ian Brady feels like he's better than the law. He may just feel like he doesn't fit in, he doesn't belong, and he doesn't respect it, and he just wants to destroy it, and he wants to vent all of this pain, these depressive, lonely feelings, and show others, see what it feels like to be like me, and just get this out of his system. I think that's more what's going on as a combination of the 9th and 11th harmonic. So that's his 11th harmonic. So, again, I think this is exciting steps for astrology. So our conclusion is that vibrational astrology does reveal likely behaviors of people. Vibrational astrology currently is used by very few astrologers, but interest in vibrational astrology is growing very rapidly. The response to these tutorial videos on ideas in vibrational astrology is huge. And lastly, future research on other criminals can refine our understanding. I've got several typos here, missing letters. Anyway, can refine our understanding of the vibrational astrology patterns. We can also create an astro signature. I use the Kepler and Sirius programs. Sirius is the larger version of Kepler. So we can make an astro signature in the Sirius program to confirm that criminals have particular planetary patterns. So we can develop our ideas, we can test them. And here I'm testing them by just applying the concepts to some charts to see if it looks viable. It does. And then we can take the research further by developing astro signatures. And we can see if our astro signature such as Saturn, Uranus, and Saturn Neptune aspects occurring in the ninth harmonic chart do occur more often in criminals than in other groups. And here are some links to the website for our astrology software company, and the link to the YouTube page of all the videos. We have over 200 videos now, and the website address of some of the other astrological activities that I'm involved in: a school, online reports, other software, and other free services. Okay, my friends, thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.